My name is Karen Carter, and I have the privilege of being co-founder of this thing called the BIPOC Fellowship, which you've all so graciously left your homes to hear us talk about this evening. It would be problematic of me to begin, however, without acknowledging that we are in this city on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. Toronto, as we all know, is also home to many First Nations who call this city home from all over the world. And this city is also covered by Treaty 13, which was signed by the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are in very interesting and challenging times when it comes to this notion of land acknowledgements. And sometimes as I read these words or say the nations that are the keepers of this particular land that we are standing on, it feels a bit trite and hollow because we've all been, especially if you work in culture, we stand in spaces where these words are stated. And I think we all know that, or I hope we know that we're at a time where there is a call for more than acknowledgement, and a call for action is what's necessary. So I would just challenge you, especially in the context of gathering in a place about equity, access, diversity, inclusion in arts and culture, that for those of us who are cultural producers, creators, consumers, lovers, enthusiasts of culture, that we charge ourselves to think about more than acknowledgement, but action. And as we come to the holidays, I would challenge myself to think about where we put our intellectual, financial, social, cultural resources, maybe give something to an Indigenous artist or community organization that's doing this work. Think about where your dollars go, just so there's action behind these statements of acknowledgement. I think as a woman of African descent, it would be remiss of me to not acknowledge that I feel I have a personal responsibility to be an effective ally for the Indigenous struggle for human rights and social justice as someone whose descendants from the transatlantic slave trade. My people are in this place partly due to forced as well as choice of migration. Gail and I were very lucky when this idea was being formed late 2020 that I'm not sure if her honor is in our lives in different ways just because of community programming. If you work in culture, you are used to seeing the magic that she brings as a pure lover of culture. Sometimes, let's admit, these folks that are given ceremonial roles, they do them and they carry them out really lovely, but it's nice when someone is in this role and comes to it with a true authenticity and love of culture. And so at this time, I'm going to ask Her Honor Elizabeth Dowdeswell to bring a few words of greetings as she is our honorary patron for the BIPOC Fellowship.
Thank you very much, Ms. Carter, Ms. Lord, Mr. Latimer, distinguished guests, and friends. Good evening, bonsoir, bonjour. How wonderful it is to be here with you tonight on these lands which have been stewarded for so many years. But what I want to recall is that the ways of knowing of Indigenous peoples are absolutely foundational to any conversation that we have about culture through Turtle Island. So the opening was very appropriate. I want to start by expressing my gratitude to the extensive cultural and arts community of this province for playing such an important role during the pandemic. You have continued to foster empathy and inclusion, encouraging a real sense of belonging as you help us explore, engage, and define these issues of our age, which are lasting for some time. Tonight, we're going to be speaking about diversity and inclusion, and we're here to unveil a very important new initiative. It's been a great privilege for me to witness the growth of the BIPOC Fellowship through the work of Carter and Gail Lord. The spark was lit by a virtual discussion that we had earlier this year, and now here we are, gathering in person and in such numbers to celebrate this ambitious project. As we all emerge from the dire days of endless Zoom calls, we might well reflect countless well-intentioned plans that we've heard to build back better. The sooner the better. It remains to be seen just how many of those plans will actually be put into action. But I think this fellowship, we can confidently say, is a shining example of what can be. You may well ask, why such an initiative and why now? Over the course of the pandemic, Canada has been undergoing a reckoning with issues of race. Courageous voices have brought about a long overdue realization that systemic change is of paramount importance. Our institutions must be reconfigured and decolonized. As cultural institutions, galleries, libraries, art spaces, and museums are known as accessible purveyors of education and sources of the nourishment offered by art, they are, in my mind, very much going to be a part of the healing process. But as everyone here is aware, there are some very critical questions. Accessible to whom? Education by whom and to what purpose? Art by whom? Representing whom? And in what way? And most pertinently, who gets to make the decisions about how these questions are actually answered? It seems to me that systemic change is only going to be possible when this last question is addressed. The representation of BIPOC people in leadership roles in this sector and the support that they actually need to thrive is essential to ensuring that the missions and values of these institutions will be meaningfully and permanently inclusive. When people see themselves represented in the work they encounter, and among those who are running the institutions, they are encouraged to imagine for themselves whole new kinds of possibilities for their own lives. What's groundbreaking about this initiative is that it is so much more than ensuring that BIPOC individuals are recruited and have opportunities to learn and grow through mentorship and support. That is important. But if we're really trying to set people up to succeed, the key is that attention is also paid to the receiving organization. The organization needs itself to experience cultural change. It needs to move beyond simply being aware of something and marketing it, to really embrace the changes in policies and practices that breathe life into creating a fully functioning, inclusive institutions, to the inside as well as the outside. So my very warm congratulations to several major cultural institutions who've recognized this and have stepped up to the plate. They will experiment and bring this project to scale. In the long term, the impact of the BIPOC Fellowship will be felt for generations to come. It's most unusual for the Office of the Lieutenant Governor to grant patronage to a, in quotes, startup project. But I'm convinced that the impact of the BIPOC Fellowship will be transformational to those institutions and those they serve. And that's why I'm so very proud to be its patron. I'm delighted, as some of you would know, to be both an ally and a co-conspirator in this work. On behalf of a grateful province, I thank Karen and Gail for their vision and for their dedication. I thank Jeffery Latimer for his tremendous support at this critical moment when things are just getting started, and all the advisors for contributing their expertise and their time. So congratulations to all. I hope you'll enjoy hearing a little bit more about the project. But in the meantime, my very warm wishes for good health and happiness and peace in this holiday season and the year to come. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Well, I want to thank Your Honour so much for your encouraging words. I think that to say that you're a supporter and a co-conspirator, and as Karen said too, a great lover and understander of the arts. We are so fortunate to have you in your leadership position, and so fortunate that you accepted to be our honorary patron. I want to really emphasize one thing that you said, was that this is about institutional change. And institutional change is really hard. And we'll be introducing our pilot projects. As there are 7 of them, 5 here in Toronto and 2 in Western Canada. It's the beginning, and you're going to meet the people in really just a few minutes. But I think that your words and your endorsation is going to be something that we're going to remember over and over again, because it's not easy, and these are pilot projects. And so thank you very, very much. Again, I just thank you. I'd like to now introduce our honorary advisor, Michael Thompson, who's the Deputy Mayor of Toronto. He's going to come up in 1 minute. Michael, you could come up now. I'll put my mask on just to be, you don't have. When I phoned Michael to ask him, sorry, Deputy Mayor Thompson, to ask him if he would consider being our honorary advisor, and I explained the concept of the BIPOC Fellowship to him, and of course he's extremely busy. You know, you have to. This is one of the shortest elevator speeches I think I've ever made. He answered in I can say like 3 seconds. He said, "This is now 1 year ago. I've just established the Economic Advisory Council to deal with the revival of our economy as a result of COVID. We cannot revive our economy without social justice and equality of opportunity and fighting racism and ethnocentrism." He said that in 2 seconds. And so it gave, again, Karen and I, so much confidence that we're on the right track. So there's a cultural track, there's an economic track, and I'm just so grateful for Deputy Mayor Thompson's support. And thank you very much, and please take the stand.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much, Gail, for the kind introduction. Jeffrey, I have to complain about the lighting, just to let you know. I know. But we will actually forge on. Good evening, everyone. And I want to tell you that it is my esteemed pleasure to be here with you as an honorary patron to the first of its kind BIPOC Fellowship for the gallery, the library, archives, museum, the GLAM sector. It's really important for us to be doing so much more. COVID-19 and its associated lockdown have had an extreme impact on the emerging BIPOC leadership and leaders in the GLAM sector. They have been hard hit, has been described by Your Honor and Gail and Karen. And so over the past 20 months, it's been extremely difficult. I know it's also been extremely difficult for everyone else as well. This is why the City of Toronto is in fact stepping in and coming forward to put resources where otherwise it would just be talk. So we are in fact putting our money where our mouth is. We are in fact committing $25,000 to building the capacity of the next generation of BIPOC GLAM sectors. $25,000 is a lot of money, folks, so I think that deserves a big round of applause. So the GLAM sector leaders at Toronto's History Museum. The BIPOC Fellowship will launch with a pilot fellowship in 7 cultural institutions, as Gail has pointed out. The Royal Ontario Museum, the Art Gallery of Ontario, the Toronto Public Library, the City of Toronto's Museum, the Mackenzie Art Gallery in Regina, and Calgary, the Contemporary Calgary, and of course the Powerplant Gallery. Toronto has the 10 historic sites, including 2 National Historic Sites in Fort York, the Historical Site, and the Spadina Museum. By creating opportunities for fellows to deepen their skills and broaden their experiences, the City of Toronto, its funding, is committed to support the recommendations. As Gail has pointed out, when she made the call to me, we had been putting together a plan for recovery for the City of Toronto, involving a variety of people from business, the arts and the cultural sector, and the social sectors, because to drive recovery requires all of us to be engaged, to be involved, and to provide input so that the recovery that we all seek is one in which we have all come to the table and we have put forward our ideas in terms of transforming this amazing city for it to continue to be a model, a beacon to the entire world. So, building back stronger, that report, and seeking to expand opportunities in the GLAM sectors for members of the BIPOC communities is extremely important to the city. It should be important to all of you, and I know it is, because as Karen has pointed out, you're here this evening, and it's perhaps not one of our better days in terms of weather and traffic. So it is a great delight to see you here and supporting this fantastic initiative. In 2020, when Karen Carter and Gail Lord were meeting to develop the BIPOC Fellowship, Toronto's History Museum was developing its Awakening initiative, which was launched in December of 2020. And I want to acknowledge, and I will, the leader of that launch for the city and the brains behind the operation, and she's here with us this evening. I can't really see her here, but I think she's over here somewhere. Yes, Cheryl Blackman. Cheryl, big round of applause for Cheryl Blackman, please. So, you know, they shared a focus on creating inclusive future in the GLAM sector. And this makes the partnership a natural fit with the fellowship that Karen and Gail has constructed and has basically, as you've heard from Your Honor, that they have co-opted her as a co-conspirator to a fabulous program, and they have done that to others as well, because with Gail and Karen, it's actually impossible to say no to either of them, and combined, they are a dynamic duo. So there's no way that you can say no to either of them, and in fact, they're always working to make things better, to make the lives of so many people better. And that, for me, is a tremendous sense of leadership. And I'd like to ask you to give them both a big round of applause. Thank you. So their work will help us actually move resolutely towards recovery and to support the city's mission. This city has a mission to build back stronger, to build back better for all, and to be inclusive. And I know that Your Honor spoke about inclusivity and so on, and Gail and Karen. I want to just remind you all of another element that we need to add, which is justice. It is extremely important. It's a component part that requires us to ensure as we try to engage more people into all of the creative faucets and the creative communities and all the other things that occur in the city, that we ensure that's a fundamental part of moving forward. Because without that, there is not the assurance, the understanding that equity is going to ensure that there is a tremendous buoyancy and benefits to those who are all part of our city family and our provincial family and, of course, the Canadian family. Because what we do, we focus on setting a sense of excellence and a great standard that is actually followed by many cities, many countries around the world, because in Canada, we are not perfect, but we're moving towards a more perfect country and a more perfect society. So by partnering with this effort, the city will address some of its immediate needs of the BIPOC leaders, including greater access to professional support, networks, and of course, mentorship opportunities, because it's extremely important to have this. Our investment in the BIPOC Fellowship represents a significant commitment to strengthen the diversity of leadership at Toronto's History Museum and to play a key role in the transformation of this sector. As we respond to the pandemic, in fact, our response has proven that when we all work together, we are at our best, and together we will in fact succeed. Financial support to the BIPOC Fellowship is in fact critical to our efforts to helping the GLAM sector build back stronger. Therefore, it is indeed my pleasure to present the BIPOC Fellowship with the check for $25,000. I'd like to ask Gail and Karen to come forward as I present the check to them.
That's it.
Yes.
This is yours.
Yep.
Okay, good.
This one's one, yes.
So this is yours.
It's a small one.
So thank you so much.
No, no problem. Yeah,
So thank
it's,
you.
Cheryl to come as well as that.
Sure. Again at the end.
Yeah, we should
Okay,
stand
that's
up.
fine. Okay, that's fine.
You're good?
Is that okay?
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank
You both.
you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll do this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councillor Thompson. It's been a long time since my Heritage Toronto days, but it's nice to have built some relationships that are helping to make things happen in this moment. And as Gail said, his response was immediate. Cheryl's response and time in working with us as we developed the concept was also immediate. So we are very grateful for the city's leadership on this. I'm going to take a moment before introducing our next supporter, Mr. Latimer, who is responsible for being part of the team that has us in this gorgeous setting. Just to flesh out a bit of the idea behind this fellowship. Most of you, when you hear the word fellowship, you think of early graduates having an opportunity for work experience in the early stages of their career. Most of us know that fellowship model. It's an opportunity to network, get some work experience, learn some things that would help you as you develop your career. Often those of us who know fellows build relationships in those early stages of their career that often last them throughout their lifetime. This is a different take on the fellowship model because what Gail and I were interested in experimenting with was leadership. So this is an opportunity for us to look at BIPOC professionals in leadership full-time roles throughout the GLAM Plus sector. And so one of the reasons we, and Her Honor and others have spoken, have said so eloquently, this is an experiment is because it's not the typical call for a fellowship that is funded. You get to work on a project for a few months, and then you leave the fellowship. You put it on your resume. Maybe the fellowship is super prestigious. We all know prestigious fellowships in this country and abroad. I know, for instance, Dr. Julie Crooks, who is at the AGO, she did a fellowship at the ROM after finishing her PhD at SOAS in the UK, and worked on a project which was then an exhibition showcase that came out of it. So we know that model. And I think the reason we're asking you to come this evening, and we targeted this request for the launch, we targeted an audience of culture enthusiasts, fellow colleagues and cultural workers in the sector, and leadership across different sectors, because what we wanted was for people to come with us through this process, to be mentors to some of the fellows. And again, these are people in full-time permanent positions, but I think we've all been watching the news over this last year when the matters post-George Floyd had a heightened awareness around equity, diversity, access, and inclusion matters, where we were seeing high-profile hires, high-profile appointments that might have lasted for a hot minute, and then you wonder to yourself what happened there. If an institution or organization goes through the process to hire someone in this senior role, I'm still optimistic to believe that they weren't performing equity. They meant to bring someone in because they're trying to work on the diversification of their team. So what happened? What went wrong? And so this pilot is about, frankly, the braveness of this pilot team to be willing to look both internally in their institution at what's happening really around this notion of diversity, equity, access, and inclusion, and what really needs to be done, as well as looking outward. So we are proposing two cohorts, one that is the institutions themselves, so the ROM, the AGO, the City of Toronto Museums, as Deputy Mayor stated, the Mackenzie in Regina, as well as Calgary Contemporary, and the Toronto Public Libraries. She's always worried that I'm going to forget something, our Gail. I got them, Gail, I got them. So we're tag teaming. This is why, you got to work with a partner in crime who can read your mind. So what you will start to see eventually as we start to have conversations, begin the process of actually unpacking some of the work that's being done within institutions, sharing best practices within this cohort group, but also some of you in this room would be called on to be mentors, to be advisors. I mean, I know, Barbara, you and Max have been traveling. We might be calling you when you're on a boat in India somewhere to give some advice to someone, because John, I know you're board experienced, so there may be a BIPOC fellow who needs advice on how to approach a particular board member. It's how we develop professional support. Maxine Bailey calls it your kitchen table, so that each professional usually has a kitchen table. It's the people you call for advice, and sometimes BIPOC professionals don't have access to the right people for advice. So how can we build a group of supporters who are advisors to assist them with professional development externally? How do you build a cohort so that that group of professionals are able to meet and support and get support and advice from each other? But how do you also find a way so that if there is an issue within the institution has places to go that are safe to get advice? And so we are far from naive. We're a lot of things, but I don't think Gail Lord and myself would ever be referred to as naive. We know this is a difficult haul, and that's why we are being super cautious in saying pilot, pilot, pilot. And that's why we are so grateful for the City of Toronto and for Jeffery Latimer and his leadership in thinking that when this concept was still in planning, and we reached out to him, and we have to give a nod because he's not here to Mr. Robert Foster, who connected us, for being so generous and saying, hey, I'm a culture lover, I'm a culture producer. I'm thinking about my place in the world and what I can do in my corner of the world. he put his hand up and offered to support us through the ticketing with a portion of proceeds going to help get the fellowship off the ground. So he is a founding partner in this process. He is also a partner in Beyond Monet as we stand here, along with the PACAN as the producers of the Beyond Monet exhibition. A lot of us may know Jeffery for the 30 years plus that he's worked in the culture sector as a producer and has worked on a lot of important cultural experience that we can all say we've been to. But he's also interested in taking a leadership role in this conversation around diversity, equity, access, and inclusion. And we are super proud that he has decided to take part in this initiative that we hope will be legacy forming for the cultural sector change across galleries, libraries, arts organizations, and museums in this country. Mr. Latimer, come say a few words. Are you going to start with that?
We'll start with, no, I won't. I'll do this in a second. Okay. There's been so many words tonight, so I'm not going to say a lot, and that's hard for me because I love speaking. But thank you, Your Honor, Deputy Mayor. It's wonderful having friends in high places that you can call on that actually care a lot about what we're doing in this city. And I just want to say, I run an organization called Canada's Walk of Fame as well, and we have our show next Friday at 8 p.m. And the reason I'm telling you this is because some of the speeches of our inductees this year, which we've shot all over North America and one yesterday in Sweden, have been about Canadian pride. And it's a diverse group, it's extraordinary, but one of them, a presenter on Sunday night at an event who was presenting an award to one of our inductees, and he said there's a difference between dreamers and doers. And we all need to be dreamers, and that's wonderful. And some of us become doers. And this inductee is one of those guys that, this presenter was speaking about. And you'll all know who he was, you can watch the show. But what was great about it is that we do need to dream. And so we dreamed of this being in the round, and the PACANs brought me in to be able to do this in Toronto. The convention center is never, ever not available. It's always busy. And COVID gave us the opportunity to use this extraordinary building with their support and the support of the Ontario government to bring it in. This is a place of peace in the city, to come in and to dream and to be and to get away from the issues that we all have. In whatever situation we're in, we all have issues. And so as a country and as a city, we have an amazing opportunity. So I look at this place as a reflection of our own self, and we can come in and just be. It's a place of peace. And so when they called and asked about the BIPOC Fellowship, I didn't know what it meant at the time, what it was at the time, but I knew it was the right thing to do. And we have that ability as entrepreneurs, as producers, as people, in our own families, in our own lives, to do something. If it's in your street corner or in your business, we all have the opportunity to make change. And it's the right time. We have more time to reflect in the world right now and to understand that as a country, we can do more, and it's great. It's good for all of us. So when they said this, I said yes. And so I am happy to have the first $60,000 to give to the BIPOC Fellowship to start, which is from our first few months here. So here you go, ladies. To you very powerful ladies. Thank you.
So much. Thank you.
Here we go. Picture. All right.
So, now that you know where the money's at, you interested in the rest of it? I didn't get an answer. Come on now. Okay, enough of you know Karen's a Baptist. I'm all about the call and response. I call, you respond. Come on now. Thank you, Jeffery. Thank you very much for your support and for being a dreamer. You got to dream. If you don't, my father used to say, you should dream in the stars, you'll land in the moon. And work hard, but always dream, because things happen when you dream. So thank you for being a fellow dreamer. And literally, both yourself and the City of Toronto, under the leadership of Deputy Mayor, we didn't know. We spent the summer with this brilliant group, which we'll call up in a couple of minutes. Gail's going to stay with me so we can have a bit of a photo op with everyone before doing a final thanks. We know you don't want to be standing here forever. We know you want to take a minute with this exhibition and maybe greet each other. Look in the eyes. Some people don't recognize people with masks on. You gotta look people in the eye. You'll remember them. The opportunity that we have had, I'll just say one more word about the fellowship, and then I don't know if Gail wants to say something before we invite the organizations that have so graciously trusted us to play in this experimental space to come up, the representatives from the organizations that are here so that you can see them, and we'll let them just kind of quickly introduce themselves so you get to see some faces to go with names. But we spent this summer on Zoom phone calls, God bless Zoom, talking about this. So when I say to you experiment, pilot, I'm not making those words up. We were literally have been figuring this out. So it makes the financial support that much more. We all know if you work in this sector, you usually have to pitch something. You got to be clear what it is. You got to be clear what the benchmark and the objectives and the KPIs are about what your outcomes are going to be. We have people who showed up to support this when we just said, we don't know what it's going to be. We know what we want to achieve, and we want the support to be able to experiment and see where it leads. So we are not naive about how powerful that is. Thank you so much. Do you want to say something before we introduce
I'm just going to say one sentence. This is a pretty simple idea, and what Karen and I are saying, it's so simple it just might work. We can't have change without new leadership. Leadership has to be based on principles of equity and inclusion. And so that's a very good way, I think, of inviting the major institutions who are here to come up on the stage so you can see them, because they're making a commitment to institutional change, to receive leaders and to nurture leadership. This is not just staff, it's leadership in their organizations who are BIPOC, right? So Black, Indigenous, people of color, and we think that this is, as I say, it's such a simple idea, it just might work. So let's start by inviting, let's see, well, Cheryl Blackman.
City of Toronto. Just quickly say her name.
So good evening. I'm Cheryl Blackman, the Interim General Manager for the City of Toronto, Economic Development and Culture, and just really thrilled to be here this evening, and want to thank Karen and Gail for all their leadership. So thank you very much, and we're very excited to be part of this event and part of this opportunity.
Okay, stay on stage, step back. The Royal Ontario Museum representatives, next. Rom, where you at?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Manuelita Cherizard. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer at the ROM, and I'm very excited to be here representing the ROM and our participation in this great initiative. And I want to thank Gail and Karen for thinking of us and for allowing us to contribute and participate.
We've also met people we didn't know. We didn't know Manuelita was, at the ROM, so it's been great to meet colleagues like her who are already in senior roles. Representatives, why can't I say the word representatives, from the AGO, the Art Gallery of Ontario. Come up, guys.
Hi, everyone. Audrey Hudson, Richard and Elizabeth Curry, Chief of Education and Programming at the Art Gallery of Ontario. And I just want to say it's a great honor to be here and to be part of this launch of the BIPOC Fellowship. And I'm excited to see what comes out of it for all of our institutions across the city and across our nation. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Alain, Chief of Human Resources at the Art Gallery of Ontario. Also very pleased and excited to be part of this new venture. Thank you.
Our Toronto Public Library is the best library system in the world.
Good evening. I'm Vickery, City Librarian at Toronto Public Library. And as you probably know, core to public library service is equity, inclusion, and social justice. So we're absolutely thrilled to have this opportunity to participate in the BIPOC Fellowship. Thank you so much.
Really excited for what's going to be happening in the future around this initiative. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Pam Ryan. I'm the Director of Service Development at Toronto Public Library. I'm just thrilled to be here tonight, and thanks to all of you and to the organizers. Really looking forward to launching this initiative.
The power plant. Where's our power plant? I know Gaetan couldn't make it. There you go. How you doing?
Hey, Karen. Hi, I'm Beverly. I'm the head of communications and marketing at the Powerplant. We're so happy to be part of this, and thank you so much for Karen and Gail for making this initiative.
So the two organizations that are missing, we might have to have a launch out west. You want to go to Calgary and Regina? Are Calgary Contemporary, as I said, and the Mackenzie. And the Mackenzie is amazing because the director is actually an Indigenous gentleman, Indigenous person, I believe, non-binary. I'm going to ask Her Honor, Jeffery and Deputy Mayor to come back up, and we'll do one quick photo with the group. And wear foals, because if not for them, we actually wouldn't have an organization.